Hello, Hoosier fans, and welcome to Washington, D.C. Here at the Verizon Center. We're joining you here after IU is defeated by Syracuse in the Sweet 16, 61-50. Obviously a very disappointing game if you're an IU basketball fan, especially with all the expectations, all the things that, we're really playing into this season for it to come to kind of a crashing halt, at this point. Very disappointing, but, guys, what kind of went wrong for IU in this game? What led to this point?
Coming into the game, a lot was said about how IU would handle Syracuse's 2-3 zone. It was very apparent that they were not prepared to take that on, even in the game's first couple minutes. They started off strong. They were able to draw some early fouls, but they really struggled from the start. To penetrate that zone. They ended the first half with 12 turnovers. Syracuse getting 12 points off of those 12 turnovers, and they really just, they couldn't get anything going.
Just being a photographer, sitting on the court watching that game was really hard. They really struggled with Syracuse's defense, and when they were 14-5 at the very beginning, I knew we weren't going to make it.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Steph is one of our photographers, has been doing a great job getting all the pictures, or at least most of the pictures that we've had in the IDS this year. So great job. And, if you do get a chance, check out the IDS, check out the website. Steph has a lot of great pictures from this game, just really capturing the emotion, especially afterwards. And, guys, we kind of talked about how disappointing it was, from an IU fan perspective. But, after the game, you could really see how disappointing this really was for the players themselves, and especially the seniors like Jordan Halls, Derek Elston, and Christian Wofford.
Yeah, you were in the locker room. What was it like in there?
It was just, I don't know, a really sad atmosphere. It was kind of hard to be in there, too. Just everyone was really torn up about it and pretty emotional, as you would expect. But
just a very tough loss, just in any regard. Even just when you're looking at this team where they're at last year, you go to a Sweet 16 last year and you lose to the eventual national champions, Kentucky. Obviously, coming in, you're the preseason number one. You're the favorite to win the Big Ten, which they did. They accomplished that. And, going into the tournament, you're one of the favorites as well. So to get to this point, the Sweet 16, and not advance past it to get to that next step of making it to the Elite Eight, it's kind of like, it's just a very big letdown in the sense that they didn't even take the next step in that regard, at least in the NCAA tournament. You can't take away from the accomplishments that they've had throughout the entire season, winning the Big Ten championship outright. The one thing that hasn't been done in 20 years until this year for IU. Obviously, a very big accomplishment, but will this team be remembered as, this disappointment? Or, where do you guys think this team should be remembered in that regard? Because obviously that next step was what IU fans were looking for. Get to the Elite Eight, get to the Final Four, make a progress.
I think, something that I took even from the post-game press conferences, not only were IU fans, Coach Tom Crean, the players expecting more out of the season than what happened. It was, you could really feel like the IU media, us writers for the HT, the Indy Star, it was just hard to even ask questions. I felt like in that post-game press conference, that was easily the shortest that we've had the entire season. People were just kind of lost for words. The players, were taking the loss really hard. We had Zeller, Watford, and Oladipo. Obviously, a couple crucial questions centered around whether Zeller and Oladipo were going to come back for next season, which they didn't, of course, give a definitive answer as we would all expect. Crean was, he was solemn in defeat. You could tell he was really upset, but I don't think it really had quite hit him yet. He was trying to, act the part. But for everybody involved and for everyone who had to watch it, it was, just a bit of a shock.
It's very hard. It's very hard, especially, for us to be around this team for so long. Just to be able to spend as much time as we have to see how dedicated, determined, and frankly, focused they've been all season on one goal. And that one goal, it ends. It ends right here. It ends here in Washington, D.C., where they wanted it to end in Atlanta. At least, who knows what would have happened if they would have got to that. But I think that's where this disappointment, this feeling of sadness really kicks in because it's that what if. But as I wrote in my column, which you could check out on the IDS website, harsh reality of this tournament and what makes this tournament so great is now you have 68 teams that enter. Only one team leaves.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of upsets this year, and I think this just added to the list. So,
I mean, this tournament is really about who is playing the best in March. Lately, even though the Hoosiers did clinch, the outright Big Ten title with their come-from-behind victory that they pulled off at Michigan, I don't think you can say that they've been playing their best basketball this past month and a half. They lost to Minnesota, lost to Ohio State, probably should have lost to Michigan, lost to Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament, nearly lost to Temple last week. Players like Jordan Hulls haven't been hitting from behind the arc. Yogi Ferrell, I think, certainly had his worst game as an IU basketball player tonight. 0 points. Actually, his second straight scoreless performance. 0 points, 4 turnovers, just 1 assist and 1 steal. It's maybe they were the best team overall these past several months, but right now, out of all the teams that made the tournament, I don't think you could make that argument.
And I think one thing that really plays into it that won't get talked about as much, or it should at least, is the fact that Indiana has gone through the gauntlet of the Big Ten. They have taken the beatings and they've dished some out themselves in the Big Ten. But when you have to go through a conference as tough as the Big Ten has been all season, I think that we just saw them get a little bit worn out. And the question was posed to Coach Crean after the Big Ten tournament. Do you think that are you confident that your team is playing the best basketball that they can be right now? And his answer was, maybe yesterday I would have said that after they beat Illinois, but after losing to Wisconsin, he doesn't feel that way. And, I think that it showed. I think that you're right. And I think that it played a little bit into that, but certainly you can't make excuses in that sense, not like they're trying to do that. But if you look at it, it's a very grueling season to go through the Big Ten the way that Indiana did, especially with the targets that they had on their back each and every game. It's not like they're getting their best shot from just the top bracket of the Big Ten. They're getting it from everybody. So, I think that there will be a lot of great things that we could take away from this season once it goes forward. But obviously, just a bit of a disappointing loss. But you know what? I think that if we would be remiss to talk about, and we would be remiss to say, this hasn't been one heck of a ride. And I think that IU fans could agree. Just the ups and downs that IU basketball has gone through in the past couple of years leading up to this year really set up for just a wonderful season. Just a great season overall. And you know what? I don't think a lot of IU fans would trade it for, anything. Maybe a 6 banner, of course, but, that wasn't in the cards for this season. But, I think that once the dust settles a little bit, we're going to be able to look back onto this team and just to realize how special they really were.
I think it's looking back, it'll be a team that, that really made a lot of accomplishments and took a lot of steps. Maybe it'll be a 2 or 3 year process getting back to what IU fans hoped would be a 6 banner this year. Maybe that comes next year, maybe in a couple of years. IU and Tom Crean are bringing in a great recruiting class next season. I'm sure there'll be several more of those down the road. Maybe people thought that this was going to be the year that they brought it back, and maybe they'll just take a couple more seasons than they really thought it was going to be. I think it really just comes down to, like you said, Mike, the Big Ten schedule is so difficult, and March is so important with being on a roll, being hot, coming into the tournament, on a winning streak, and I think that's really important for the teams that come out and perform well in this tournament. And I think with the Big Ten, as tough as it was, coming out, ending the regular season in the Big Ten tournament on a 3-3 record, it's just hard to really get much of a rhythm going into it when you have a couple key players like Jordan Hulls a little off. It's just hard to get the momentum that you have to win 6 games in a row and achieve what IU fans hope that the Hoosiers would in this tournament.
Guys, before we sign off for the very last time, I think why don't we take this opportunity just to kind of relive some of our favorite moments of the season? If you could pick one, what would be your favorite moment of this season? I know it's very tough to pick just one, but at least one that comes to mind right away.
Well, I think the obvious one is the Michigan game. You know, watching the ball hang on the rim, like everyone talked about, just being able to see that in person was really cool, and the reactions of everyone afterwards, like how excited Oladipo was laying on the court, and it was just really cool to be there for that.
That was definitely a very emotional game. I mean, it was something that, I think sitting on press row, I didn't think they were going to pull out the game even the last minute or so of that game. I think the most memorable for me was probably just the whole weekend that surrounded College game day coming to IU. I think that really signified a big moment in them coming back to prominence in the college basketball world. ESPN bringing their crew, and Hoosier Nation coming out as strong as they did in Assembly Hall, and coming out as loud as they did in the game that evening against Michigan, where IU took I think it was an 81-73 victory, and really kind of, I think at that point solidified how great they truly were. They hadn't really faced the gauntlet of the Big Ten season thus far, and that was probably the first really, really big win of this season, I think.
Guys, I can't, I know I asked you to do it, but I can't break it down to one moment, but I will quantify it as the moments at Assembly Hall. I think that, every single game and every time that we were able and privileged enough to, be able to watch games at Assembly Hall, that's what I'm going to remember from the season. Unbelievable experience. But, we thank you for joining us all season. Might have been a bit of a disappointing end, but a great season nonetheless.
It was a great pleasure to cover it too.
Yes, it was.
We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of IU men's basketball all season long. We won't stop working. I hope you guys continue to follow us and follow the rest of the basketball tournament and the rest of IU basketball through the off season. But for one last time, I'm Michael Norman, Nathan Brown, Steph Lagnet. You guys have a great time, and we appreciate you guys following us and the IDS for all coverage of Indiana sports. Thanks.
Catch you later.
Bye.